Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Suspiria, released in 1977 by master of Italian horror Dario Argento. I'm covering this now because of the Kinda remake coming out by Luca Guadagnino, which has a wide release on November 2nd and apparently is pretty divisive, so I can't wait to see it. I'm all about that shit. The original Suspiria is an absolute classic and has its roots in the giallo subgenre of the 70s, Italian horror and thriller films that have a mystery or crime element to them. They're also usually big on gore and sex, so giallo films are sometimes considered a predecessor to American slasher films. Unlike the giallos that came before it, though, Suspiria dives headfirst into the supernatural and features an almost entirely female cast, two aspects of the movie that may have been influenced by Argento's new wife and Suspiria co-writer Daria Nicolodi. Suspiria follows an American ballet student, played by Jessica Harper, who arrives in Germany to begin her studies at a dance academy. That's all I'll say about it right now, because honestly, I want you to stop this video and go watch the movie if you've never seen it before. It's one of my favorite horror movies. But don't go into it expecting a sensible storyline or a masterful plot. Suspiria is much more focused on visuals and sound, and it's a triumph in both. The bitchin' soundtrack is scored by Italian prog rock band Goblin and is worth the price of admission alone. But then you get to how cool everything looks and, oh man, I mean, look at this dope-ass cinematography. And the colors, Duke! The colors! This Italian classic has also got a ton of kick-ass kills to it, so let's get to them. The movie begins with a credit sequence and that amazing theme that I can't include in this video or else it'll get claimed faster than a new iPhone in the Lost and Found. But just look it up on YouTube if you've never heard it, it's amazing. Our fairy tale princess, Susie Banyan, arrives in a Munich airport and steps out into Nightmare Land with a fanfare. As the elements rage against her, portending the dangers she'll face ahead, she hails a taxi cab and takes a ride through the pounding thunderstorm to see the various colors and flood points of the city. Her cab pulls up to the bright red ballet institute that she'll soon be calling home, Tan's Academy, and on her way to the front door, she sees another girl leaving in a hurry, yelling something that's overpowered by the thunderclaps overhead. Susie's unable to gain admittance right now, so she heads back the way she came, passing the other girl she saw running through the Black Forest. What, not gonna offer her a ride, Suze? The girl, Patricia HINGLE, shows up at a friend's apartment building that has an amazing looking lobby, complete with a stained glass window in the ceiling. Her friend, Sonia, is fine with her staying overnight, even though Pat's unable to explain why she had to flee the academy.
It's useless to try and explain it to you. You wouldn't understand.
Oh yeah, by the way, all the dialogue in this movie is overdubbed. Apparently, the international cast members all spoke their own various languages while filming, and everything got overdubbed into English in post-production. It can be a little jarring if you're not used to it, but for me, it doesn't detract from the movie at all. Pat is tormented by angry gusts of wind and creepy whisper sounds from outside the apartment building. But the most frightening thing of all is when she looks outside and sees some eyes in the darkness. Huh, that might just be a Cheshire Cat, Pat. I wouldn't worry too much. Oh shit, never mind! We've got a nasty hairy arm grabbing Pat's head and smushing it against the window. As Sonia tries to get help from her neighbors, Pat's head is shoved through the glass window, and then she gets stabbed while, what, out on a balcony? Where the fuck is she right now? I guess she's in Stab City, Stab City, because that's what keeps happening to her as she flails around inside this cage. Damn, she like the mayor of Stab Town. Her murderer grabs a cable and ties it around her body, then stabs her a few more times for good measure, including, get this, straight through her exposed and beating heart. Wow, that thing's like a pulsating sirloin steak. Pat's death finally comes after her head crashes through the stained glass skylight, which Sonia sees when she gets down to the lobby. We get what's perhaps the movie's most iconic scene when Pat's body crashes through the window, the cable tied around her body coming undone just enough to hang her by the neck with. Trust me, if you were unfamiliar with this movie before, you'll now start to notice the shot of Pat's hanging body referenced all over the place. And Pat's death isn't the only one we get in this sort of cold open, because down on the ground, right near Pat's own puddle of blood, is Sonia's body, killed by the falling beams and shrapnel, with a particularly large piece of glass bifurcating her face. Fuck yeah, giallo movies! The next day, Susie arrives at the academy and meets an instructor named Miss Tanner, this tiger shark in heels who always looks like she's about to break her own teeth from smiling too hard. Tanner introduces Susie to Madame Blanc, the headmistress of the academy, played by Joan Bennett in her final film role ever. But Madame Blanc is only second in command here. The top dog, the directress of the academy, is unfortunately out of town right now.
I offer you our Academy's official welcome in the name of our directress, who unfortunately is not here at the moment. She's traveling abroad.
Tough time to be gone, what with Pat's disappearance and these detectives at the school investigating it. But don't get too attached to these dudes, they only have a couple of lines, and after this scene, they're never even heard from again. These cops and their fancy logic don't belong in this nightmare fairy tale. Instead, the Academy is chock full of creepy characters who Susie's gonna have to keep an eye out for. For instance, there's Madame Blanc's creepy little nephew Albert, who looks like he's about to go up a hill to fetch a pail of water. And here's Pavlos, a handyman who the staff is not super nice to.
He's really ugly, isn't he? Don't be afraid to say so.
Yeah, Italian Jaws, you ain't got no alibi. Get out of here, you ugly fuck. Susie is taken to a locker room where all the other dancers are waiting with judgmental looks. The sultry one, striking an Angelina Jolie pose, is Olga, who it turns out will be Susie's roommate at an apartment downtown. She immediately establishes herself as a mean girl frenemy towards Susie and another dancer, Sarah.
I once read that names which begin with the letter S are the names of snakes.
Jeez, get a room already. Oh wait, you've got one. Olga's bitchin' bachelorette pad is dope as hell, and Susie is lucky to be living there. Like, what is that hourglass lamp? It's awesome. Way better than living at the school like some of the other dance students. After a class, Madame Blanc does offer Susie a room at the academy so she can live there as well, but Susie politely declines. Guess it wasn't polite enough to avoid the wrath of Miss Tanner, though.
I had no idea you were so strong-willed. I see that when you make up your mind about something, nothing will change it for you. My compliments.
But you can't really blame Susie. Who would want to live in this building when you've got weirdos like Albert and his nanny staring you down in the hallway and flashing sunlight in your eyes? What the fuck, lady? Don't you know Susie's allergic? At least she must be, because after getting Manfred manned by the nanny, she can barely keep herself up during her next class at the academy. I'm not a dancer or anything, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to look like you're doggy paddling through the air. Eventually, she collapses to the ground and some red paint comes out of her nose and lips. Is that candy apple or more of a fire engine red? I don't know, I'm not an artist either. To treat her mysterious illness, the ladies of the academy put her in a room and, well, kind of looks like they're waterboarding her, but I guess they're just trying to make sure she stays hydrated.
You look better already. You've even got color back in your cheeks.
Color in her cheeks? Lady, look around you. There's freaking color everywhere. In any case, Susie's belongings have been moved out of Olga's apartment and into this room, so it looks like she's gonna be staying at the academy after all, even though she would still prefer to live off campus. Chin up, Susie. The academy's doctor, Professor Vertigast, has a great prescription for you to get better.
A glass of red wine with each meal. It works miracles.
Hell yeah, get shwasted, Suze. Doctor's orders. The good news about Susie's new rooming arrangement is that she has Sarah as a next door neighbor. The bad news is that there's something creepy crawly about this place, as she discovers while combing her hair. What's that you just found there, Susie? Oh, it's a maggot. Maybe it's just the one though. I'm sure there's nothing to, oh no, your comb is fucking full of them. Pretty gross. Where are these things coming from? Son of a bitch, all these dancing pupils are getting covered in pupa. Miss Tanner heads into the attic to see where these baby bugs are coming from, and amidst a sea of blue light, she finds the source of infestation. A wooden crate that she opens to find a bunch of, I don't know, what is that, meat? Is that a meat crate? Yeah, zoom in on the maggoty meat crate. That's a real fun shot. God, maggots are gross. Madame Blanc tells the girls that they must have gotten a delivery of spoiled food, and since the storm of maggots has rained down into all of the student rooms, they're gonna have to have a fucking slumber party! Oh man, it's like when your high school did a lock-in and you got to sleep in the school gym. Could I get a hand check here? Madame Blanc wishes all the girls goodnight and the instructors leave, turning off the lights so everyone can watch a red-tinted puppet show. God damn, the colors in this movie are pretty. Nighttime gives way to crazy wide camera angles that bend the edges of the shot and make everything look weird, which goes along nicely with all the crazy weird whispers on the soundtrack. Against this backdrop, a striking figure takes her place in bed behind where Susie and Sarah are lying. The mysterious person begins to snore very loudly, which awakens Sarah from her slumber. She wakes up Susie, and they come to the conclusion that their sleep apnea-afflicted friend back there must be the directress of the academy. The staff was lying about her being out of town. Sarah can tell it's the directress from her snoring, which she had heard previously in another weird experience. She tells Susie all of this in a very intimate close-up.
So I know she's the directress. She's there, right behind that sheet.
The next morning, the Academy's pianist Daniel shows up for another average day of tickling them keys. Daniel is blind and thus has a seeing eye dog that he leaves tied up outside the school while he's at work. But today, Albert and his nanny are approaching the dog in a really strange way. And after the camera cuts inside, we hear the dog snarling and Albert screaming his little Aryan head off. Miss Tanner interrupts a very jumpy dance session to yell at Daniel, telling him that his dog bit a big old chunk out of poor little Albert. Daniel is incensed at the accusation that his pup is not a good boy, and Tanner tosses tosses him and his cane out of the academy. It's definitely humiliating for the poor dude, but at least he doesn't have to see Miss Tanner's creepy smile.
Get out! Get out of here! Good riddance!
Apparently Susie is still on that wine and no calories diet, which is why she's suburban mom drunk that night when Sarah stays over with her and tries to listen to the traffic patterns of the instructors in the hallway to figure out where they go every night after supper.
I don't think they're leaving the school.
What? What did you say?
Yeah, I don't know either, Sarah. That was more slurry than a Mark Twain novel. Before Susie can clarify anything, though, she passes out like a fucking freshman. Learn to hold your wine, girl. Yo, you know who could drink Susie under the table? These leader bros in having a tabletop group dance in a bar that Daniel's chilling at. He leaves the bar to head home with his faithful dog leading the way, but as soon as that kick-ass goblin theme starts playing, you know something spooky gonna happen. It's another sequence made unforgettable by the striking imagery and how straight up bizarre it is. Daniel and his dog walk into the middle of this giant public space, which in real life is Königspacht Square, a place in Munich where Nazis held rallies and book burnings. Makes sense, this place definitely has that severe Nazi aesthetic going on. Daniel's dog starts going nuts and he begins to suspect that someone is around them, even though we can see that he's all by himself in the middle of this big open space. He should be plenty safe. But then there are some push-ins on a gargoyle statue and a swooping POV shot with fluttering sound effects. Some shadows cast on one of the buildings there almost begins to look like a pack of witches on broomsticks. But we never see anything tangible before Daniel's dog suddenly attacks him out of nowhere. He knocks him to the ground and tears his throat out. The only witnesses to the act, these two imposing buildings. We get more red paint looking blood coming out of Daniel's mouth, but if you want more than that, here you go. There's some real gross meaty stuff that the dog tears from his face just off screen. The kill only ends when a couple of police officers rush to the crime scene and chase the dog away. That's a bad dog, right? Susie meets with Madame Blanc because she's weirded out by all the deaths going on, and she tells the headmistress that when she saw Pat Hingle in the rain that night, she heard her say 2 words on her way out the door.
Secret and irises.
Madame Blanc says she'll let the police know, but I wouldn't trust her, Suze. Ever since you got here, she's been casting dark shadows all over the place. Sarah gets upset at Susie for talking to Madame Blanc because I guess she was Pat's friend and doesn't want to be placed under suspicion. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just sitting here wondering why Susie's going swimming in a t-shirt. What, you ain't got no swimsuit, girl? The story gets away from me even further when Sarah says that she has notes that Pat left her and that she'll share them with Susie that night. But night comes and Susie's white girl wasted again. And even worse, the notes are missing from Sarah's room. Apparently someone stole them from her, and I'm still not entirely sure what those notes are all about, but at least this scene gives us our first outright indication of what's really going on.
Susie, do you know anything about witches?
With that, Susie's down and out, so Sarah is left on her own to investigate the footsteps and chattering she hears in the hallways outside their room. After everything turns a Wicked Witch green, Sarah goes into the red-tinted hallways and winds up climbing into the attic, which is a moody sort of blue. All 3 primary colors of light in a matter of minutes. Good work, Argento. She gets attacked by a switchblade and ends up crashing through a couple of candy glass windows before taking refuge behind a door that she latches shut. But when her assailant goes to lift the latch up with her blade, Susie backs away in horror and cowers into a crumple. The only way out of this room seems to be through a small box window at the top of the wall, so as her attacker continues trying to get in, come on, it shouldn't be that hard, dude, it looks pretty damn simple. Sarah climbs a tower of suitcases and fits her way through the window. She ends up in a weird small room with a door right in front of her, but when she hops down a ledge to get to it, she ends up entangled in a bunch of razor wire. Oh shit! Hey Saw, eat your beating heart out. Sarah tries to reach the door, but she only gets deeper and deeper enmeshed within the wire. Now, granted, the close-ups here show that this wire has no razors or barbs to speak of, but maybe that's why her attacker shows up to finish the job himself with a razor blade across the throat. R.I.P. Sarah. Susie wakes up and looks for her friend, only to have Miss Tanner tell her that Sarah left the academy that morning. Susie don't buy that shit, so she goes to meet with this dude Frank Mendel, a friend of Sarah's that she had mentioned during their secret whisper swim times. As he wears the hell out of that dope green blazer, he tells Susie what Sarah had been talking to him about before her disappearance.
She had discovered that the Tam Academy was founded in 1895 by a certain Helena Marcos, a Greek immigrant, and that the local people believed her to be a witch.
Apparently, this Marcos lady, alias the Black Queen, kept getting kicked out of European countries before settling down in Munich and founding the Tanz Academy. She died in a fire in 1905, and that's about it. This scene is mostly just for exposition, and for Dario Argento to get some wicked cool shots around the BMW headquarters building. Before she leaves, though, Susie is introduced to a local witchologist, Professor Milius, who tells her all about covens, saying that if one is deprived of its leader, it becomes like a snake without a head. You know, something you can tread on. That night, full of witching suspicion, Susie takes her usual dinner into the bathroom and flushes it all down the toilet, then spills the wine into the sink where it leaves a bright, stubborn residue. She once again hears footsteps coming from the hallways, but since she isn't all wind up tonight, she's able to count what she hears in order to figure out where the instructors are all going. She creeps through the colorful hallways, counting steps like a marching band member, until she ends up in a chic little boudoir that at first appears to be a dead end. But after a closer look at her surroundings and the wallflowers over there, Susie remembers what Pat Hingle had been saying when she saw her in the rain, lit up by the taxi's one headlight.
The secret! I saw behind the door! 3 irises! Turn the blue one!
So Susie does what the poorly dubbed lady suggested and turns the blue flower on the wall, which gains her access to a secret door. Talk about flower power. Through that door and behind some blue velvet curtains, Susie ventures deeper and deeper into the Academy's secret passageways. She eventually comes across a clandestine meeting where Madame Blanc is telling everyone around her that they need to make Susie disappear.
She must vanish. She must die. Die! Die!
Oh, it's okay, Susie. I'm sure she didn't mean it. Then again, she does take a drink of something and starts screaming out a spell. Susie has a reaction to it that little fucker Albert notices, so it looks like her secret spy mission is about to be blown. On her way back out, though, she comes across the body of her dearest SARA, with pins in her eyes and her wrists nailed down. She leaves the hallway through another door that lands her in a room with a colorful peacock light and the world's loudest snorer sleeping behind a curtain over there. Susie accidentally knocks over the bird with the crystal plume, and the resulting crash wakes up the terrifying directress of TANS.
Who is it? Who's there? I've been expecting you. The American girl.
Yeah, dude, Helena Marcos is freaking scary, man, and she laughs as Susie picks up a piece of that broken bird to use as a weapon. Her taunting only grows worse after Susie goes to attack the head witch in charge and finds nothing in her place.
You wanted to kill me. You wanted to kill me. What are you going to do now, huh?
Helena's disembodied voice keeps mocking Susie as random things start to explode throughout the room. Then Susie's night gets a whole lot worse because out from behind this door comes an undead SARA, giggling with mindless rage as blood flows from her mouth. Susie is shocked, but in a flash of lightning sees an outline of Helena Marcos sitting on the bed. She stabs at the invisible figure and the hit lands. Marcos begins to appear in all her decrepit glory as the undead SARA fades away in a video dissolve. The now embodied Helena Marcos, who is all sorts of nasty, starts grabbing at Susie, but it's too late for the old lady. Susie drives the stiletto straight through Helena's neck, killing the Black Queen of TANS Academy and adding another body to our humble kill count. Things start going crazy in the room, so Susie retreats out into the hallway. She glances back to see a room full of suffering, and I'll go ahead and count the 4 people we see in there as dead. Madame Blanc, Miss Tanner, a random woman in the background, and especially Pavlos, because he is all sorts of bloody. Stuff continues to spontaneously combust as Susie backtracks through the Academy's passageways. She finally makes it outside, straight into another thunderstorm, and leaves behind the building that's now burning on the inside. The movie ends with Susie smiling at her successful escape and a window exploding from the fire, as the score from Goblin merges with the screams of the burning witches inside. How many kills did we wind up with in our first European film on the kill count? Let's find out and get to the numbers. Oh, I got a mic. I have a mic cable here. Never mind. No spin. No spin. 9 people died in Suspiria, at least as far as we could tell from what we saw, and of those deaths, 7 were women while only 2 were men, giving us an uncommon pie chart that's more than 3/4 lady victims. With a runtime of 99 minutes, we wound up with a kill on average every 11 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Pat Hingle. Even if you take away the crazy shot of her exposed heart getting stabbed, her body crashing through the stained glass window is the image most associated with this film, and for good reason. It's frickin' incredible. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to the Academy staff that whipped around against a wind machine and eventually burned to death off screen. Which is burning to death. Give me something I haven't seen before. And that's it. Suspiria came out in 1977 and is a classic of the horror genre. I don't know if the new one lives up to its reputation because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure I will, and yes, I'm sure I'll cover it on this series eventually. But until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching the latest Kill Count. I want to thank a couple of patrons like Brett St. Pierre, Joe Croft, Brian Matthew Warriger, and Kobe Glavine. People always like to ask what my second favorite horror movie after The Thing is. Right now, it's Suspiria. Do you guys like my creative meat back here? That's white rice as maggots and meat as meat. Oh, it's not cooked rice. Be good people.